Vision is the rarest commodity in the world. And vision is the greatest deliverer of value that the world has ever seen. And dollars follow value. So we're going to map that out. We're going to unveil that. We're going to talk about it. And let me begin with the framework right now. So high risk equals high return is a faulty notion, but they want you to believe that. Then they tell you it's all about the amount of time that you take for this, right? So multiplied by time. So money times rate times time. That's the accumulation philosophy. If you just set enough money aside, you do it for long enough, and you take high risk because you're in it for the long haul, it's okay if the market goes down, because the market goes down and the market goes up. You just got to wait for it. But you know what? We did a little research from 2000 to 2015, adjusted for inflation. The market didn't do 10% per year since 2000 BC like they want you to believe. It did 8.4% total, yet people put their money at risk. Now, do you think most financial institutions did better than 8.4% that their clients got? Because they got their fee year in and year out, whether they made money or not. This is a faulty equation. It really sucks. And by the way, if it doesn't work out and you go read the magazines, what they'll tell you is, oh, if this doesn't work out, you can move to Ecuador. It's really cheap there. I'm not even making this up. It really is some of the advice that they give. Now, forget that your family's not there. Forget about some of the diseases and whether the water's clean or not. Just it's cheap, right? Okay, so that would be one thing. Or they say this didn't serve you well. You're not economically independent. Just add more money. Just add more money. Well, that sounds great. It didn't work. Let's put more in. Would we ever use that advice in our business? Yet somehow that's crept into the financial world. Just put more money in? No. And by the way, they say time value of money. It's all about starting early. So by the time you now know it's not working out and you're putting more money in, it doesn't have time to grow. That sucks. You take risk, you go against what the biggest, best investors in the world talk about. You know, people like Warren Buffett says he detests risk. He hates it so much that the most risk he's willing to take is he might eat cottage cheese the day after expiration, right? You know, his rules, like number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, refer back to rule number 1. Most of the people in the world would have a lot more money if they just protected their downside. So in day 2, I'm going to talk to you, how do you protect the downside of your investments? How do you start creating strategies to manage risk? And I don't want you just to wait for 30 years, because compound interest kind of takes 30 years to do something. If you look at compound interest, it's usually one of these things where it's like, okay, the first few years it's good, but then it's always this last 10 years where you get that growth curve and that hockey stick kind of thing. Well, what if we could just get you there in 3 to 7 years? Wouldn't that be better? That's what we're here to do. 3 to 7 years. 3 years, if you're already really frugal, you're saving all your money and we help you with the better methodology. 7 years if you're kind of addicted to lifestyle like me. I'm the 7-year guy. It took me 7 years because I like the finer things, and I believe a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. You know? Yeah. You start hanging out with people and they introduce you to certain foods, and it's really hard to go back to what you're eating before. You know? And I would tell you what I eat, but then animal lovers get mad, you know, and that kind of stuff. But it's, you know, there's just certain things that happen that it's really hard to go back from. I was in my mid-20s before I ever flew first class, and then once you fly it, it's really hard to go back. I'm a tall guy, and you know, there's people that crowd you, so those are the types of things. I don't want you to have to go back. So it might take you 7 years if you're deep in debt, or if you're just really addicted to lifestyle, and for a lot of people, it's only a 5-year deal. So we're going to map that out. We're going to unveil that. We're going to talk about it, and let me begin with the framework right now. So you can open up your workbook, and you can go right to page 5, all right? Page 5 is going to unveil this. The first thing to do is to recover cash. This is the 5-lever framework to economic independence. This is the 3 to 7 year plan. So recover cash. How do we do that? There's 4 I's that most people are losing out on, the letter I. The one is overpaying the IRS. 93% of people tip the government. No reason to tip them. They're not good wait staff and that kind of stuff, and you're, sharing your gratitude. They don't even give you a thank you. They just spend it how they want. So tipping the government, the IRS, that's the first I. The second I is investment fees. So there's hidden fees, there's hidden commissions, and this makes a huge difference. Let's say that you had a 0.85% fee, so less than 1%, and you had $100,000 invested, and it could do 10% over 30 years. That 1% fee Instead of having a $1.74 million account, you'd have a $1.4 million account. So that less than 1% costs you $340,000. These things matter massively, right? It's like being on an airplane and having a headwind versus a tailwind, a huge deal. The next one is interest. Most people overpaying on interest. So you can renegotiate interest rates, you can restructure loans, you can simply do what we call cash flow optimization. We'll take you through that tomorrow so that you can understand exactly how to reclaim that money that's going inefficiently to the institutions. Then the last one is insurance. And I know everyone in here loves paying for insurance, so I don't want to take that away from you. Because of your payments to insurance, they can now beat the beer commercials with better commercials. These geckos, these cavemen, these football players, I mean, they're somewhat humorous if you didn't, push past it on your DVR recorder. But insurance, there's a lot of duplicate coverages and duplicate costs. It's not about which company you choose as much, it's how you structure things. And a lot of people don't have structure because these order takers of insurance agents don't actually look at how to get the right transfer of risk and the right structure to your policies. Instead, they're simply saying, oh, let me give you a quote with a different company and see if we can beat the price. So those are some of the ways that people are inefficient, and what we want to do is boost profits, recover cash, because that's money that can now go into your financial life to help you get to economic independence, okay? The second piece is to strategically engineer wealth. That's what this first day of awareness is about. To strategically engineer wealth, we're going to look through safety and security, because you're going to have everyone in this room, everybody watching is going to have a financial surprise sometime in their life, and some of you are going to have multiple. The question is, are you going to be prepared for that? Because 95% of the time, it wouldn't have had to be devastating. It wouldn't even have to be that much of a bump in the road once you understand the safety and security part of strategically engineering wealth. So we begin with the foundation, and we figure out where you set, where you're not set, where do you have blind spots. Then, from the foundation, we move into more kind of safeguarding, which is how do you really transfer risk? Everything from asset protection to corporate structure to having plenty of liquidity. That is the number one underemphasized thing in the world of finance is liquidity. Having enough money on hand. One, just because now you have a peace of mind fund, because have you ever been where you don't have any cash on hand, and then all of a sudden you start feeling a lot of stress, you start taking on clients that maybe you don't want to take on simply in the name of making money, or you're working late and then you're not sleeping well. Everything starts to crash down more when you have a lack of liquidity. But the best investors in the world aren't the investors that always stay invested. They're the investors that sit on cash, and then when the opportunity presents itself, they pounce. I read an article once on Ted Turner, and they called him a predatory investor. They said he sat and waited, and then when the opportunity came, when everybody else had been investing all along, and now all of a sudden they were stuck, they were illiquid, or the market was going down, he could now buy when the time was right. That's a different type of investing than most of us have been trained, taught, or educated throughout our lifetime. And then finally, on strategically engineering wealth, it's about growth. It's about investor DNA. It's about money and investing. So we get the foundation done first. Then we build in the safeguards and liquidity. Now it's about investing, but only selecting investments that make sense based upon who you are. And cash flow investments first. Because the number one objective is economic independence first, not accumulation for 30 years from now, all right? Then the third thing is to accelerate investment income. Do you have any lazy assets? Do you have any money that's not producing cash flow for you? 401ks, IRAs, any type of retirement plan that isn't putting money in your pocket, but it's taking money from it. There's a way to do an election to start getting that money come into your life rather than go out of your life without a 10% penalty, even if you're younger than 59 and a half. That would be one example. Or is there latent equity? Is there money that's sitting around that's not doing something for you? What can we do to put that into a cash flowing type of structure? Then, scale business revenue. So scaling business revenue is the key factor for economic independence. It is the number one game changer. You can go read thousands of financial books if you had no other life other than reading financial books. So maybe more like dozens of financial books. But if you read all these books, most of them, and I'm saying like 99% would miss one key factor. They would tell you to save. They tell you to watch fees, some of them. Some might even tell you good investments to put money in and how to be a better investor inside of that. But if you want to truly be wealthy, it's about owning a business or having ownership in a business or having upside potential, because that's where wealth is truly built. Tony Robbins wrote a book called Money Master the Game. Anyone read it? 650 pages. So I could save you the time, but sorry, now you already read it. There's some good stuff in the book, but here's where the book is completely a lie. And it's not Tony that's telling the lie as much. Every billionaire that he interviews inside of that book, what do they tell you to do? When you talk to Charles Schwab, he interviews him, he's like, what should people do to become wealthy? Discount brokerage accounts. Guess why he said that? He invented them. So he made it by building a business around that, yet he's telling everybody else to feed that business where he's got leverage and scale. Then they asked Bogle what to do, and he's like, put it in index funds. No, he invented index funds. He didn't make money by putting money in it. He made money by selling it to everyone else because he had leverage and scale. So it goes on and on and on until we hit Mark Farber, the boom, doom, and gloom billionaire guy. And he says, look, if I could only give my kids one piece of advice, it would be find your insider advantage. Find the thing that you do best and build a business around it because that's where real wealth is made. And so scaling business revenue means that you can actually start to build something that you don't have to be responsible for every little thing, every little minute, like maybe self-employment might be that way, but really where you can start to leverage an idea, a vision, value, because other people are willing to work for it. Look at, do you think that Trump's ever picked up a hammer in his life? Yet he talks this big game about building the most beautiful and biggest buildings in the world. Simply, he's selling a vision which has a lot of leverage and scale. That's why he gets a lot of attention, but people are excited to go and build these types of things and get paid for that. That's scale, right? Scale has to do with this. This is what it comes down to. The rarest commodity in the world, the rarest, is vision. Vision is the rarest commodity in the world. And vision is the greatest deliverer of value that the world has ever seen. And dollars follow value. So most people think hard work is what constitutes value. But the thing is, I grew up in a coal mining town. Do you think that there's people that work harder than coal miners? I mean, coal miners work pretty damn hard. But how many coal miners do you know that are extraordinarily wealthy? They didn't have a lot of vision. Hell, it's dark in there, right? They're crawling around. I mean, it's not an exciting thing. So it's just harder sometimes to sit and think about vision and make vision compelling enough that it doesn't sound like every mission statement that you've ever seen on every wall that is so blah, blah, blah and meaningless, like we're good at customer service, we care about our customers and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about vision like JFK saying, we're going to land a man on the moon and return him safely home within this decade. That's vision. People showed up differently the next day. For us, vision is 1 million entrepreneurs to economic independence, changing their financial future and their family's destiny. That's our vision. We're not here to simply get higher returns in the stock market. We're not here, we're here very specifically for a reason that we want to make sure people become economically independent because when they do, they can be more impactful in the businesses that they own.